Hi, I'm Maria Ingold. We're here at Connected Media IP at NAB 2018, and I'm joined by Chris Green, who handles international business development for ABOX 42.
Hello.
Hello, and welcome.
Yeah, it's good to be here, Maria.
Very good to see you. And how are you finding NAB so far?
Yeah, it's been good. It's traditionally probably not our prime focus because we don't get some of the smaller operators here, but it's still a very important show for us, and it's one where we have to have a presence. It's an international show.
So tell me a little bit about ABOX 42. You do set-top boxes, but it's more than just that.
It is really. I mean, people still see it as the set-top box is the end of the supply chain, if you like, but it's an important part of that. At ABOX 42, we control and manage our own hardware, our own software, so we're in complete control of our own solution. And we've been established for about 8 or 9 years now, and have built a core of business in Germany and in Europe. And we're now starting to expand out to the rest of the world, bringing the strengths and what we've learned by being able to manage our complete set-top box solution to the US, to the Americas and elsewhere.
That's great. So you do both IPTV and OTT, but you've seen some problems with smaller suppliers trying to deliver IPTV. Why is that?
I think a lot of it is more to do on the financial side rather than the technology side. If you go back 10 or 15 years, something like that, it was the technology, making the technology work. And then you've got transitions from SD to HD, and now of course we're looking at 4K as well. But the prime problem that we've seen and what we get told, particularly in the US, is actually the operators don't make money out of it. So they're having to subsidize this from fixed line, from mobile, from broadband. So for some of them, they've experimented with TV over the years, have made a loss out of it, and either look, well, what do we do about it? Or in some instances, have even pulled out. So at some of the shows that we do here, it's a common theme that comes out. How do you make money out of TV? We don't make money out of TV. What can we do? We've looked at it, tried it, we've lost money, we've come out of it. But also a lot of their subscribers are being approached by other providers who do have a TV service. So they're now in the situation when they actually have to do something about it.
So how are you helping them?
Well, we've sort of looked at it in terms of, okay, how do we fit into this? How can we help? And first of all, the pricing has to be correct for the market. You can't continue with some of the higher pricing that the operators have had to pay, because that's part of the problem. Also, what do they do when they've already got a number of set-top boxes that are installed? You can't expect them, which has happened in the past, okay, you need to replace all the set-top boxes that you've already got being used and bring in more new set-top boxes for a new solution. Because that's happened, and the cost of the set-top box, depending on the complexity of the project, is probably something like 70 to 80% of the overall cost of a project. So you can't really expect set-top boxes to be replaced every 2, 3, 4, 5 years. And what you're seeing in the US is some instances there's been the same set-top boxes that have been used for 8 to 10 years. So that is important, and what we're doing is working with the selected partners like Singularity, where we can offer a cap and grow solution, so they can cap what they actually have now and grow going forward. Now grow, that can mean new services, it can be transition into 4K, but it's being able to give operators the opportunity to, okay, this is what we have now, we can continue with that service, let's call it, it could be a standard service, but a new service could be a premium service when they can be offering 4K. Not everyone wants to migrate to 4K now. So it's looking at different solutions that can be right for the operators to be able to offer to their customers.
Yeah, it's a very good point about looking at the right solution, because there are a number of different solutions you can offer, but it depends what people actually want, how they're consuming content.
Yeah.
So what are your thoughts on things around like Android TV?
Well, Android TV is interesting because at NAB last year, Google made the announcement about operator tier, which was, I think, a good step forward. Historically, there have been issues with Android as an operating system, as a solution. A number of operators around the world had tried Android, but retail set-top boxes aren't designed to run 24/7. So they might run for 3 or 6 months and then be okay, but they're not designed to be on all the time, which set-top boxes tend to be used for. So they would then break, and the truck rolls were getting sort of very high. So I think the launch of an operator tier was a sort of good way forward.
Yeah.
I think there's not been a dramatic amount of progress since then in terms of what Android TV are doing about it. And I think that the jury is still out. I think there's still a core of operators and customers that want to stick with the traditional Linux solution, and some will actually try Android TV. Now, whether that's going to work, I think it's too early to say. I mean, some of the issues that we can see with Android TV is Google's requirement to have an upgrade every 90 days. Now, the reason behind that is to make sure that the operating system is fully up to date, which is fine in principle. But there's always a risk when you're having to upgrade set-top boxes in the field when they're deployed, and if you're having to do that 4 times a year, the risk of something going wrong increases all the time. So I think there's still an element of let's wait and see how well does it actually work. But certainly Android TV could be a solution. But we're seeing, again, particularly in the US market, a lot of interest a year ago in it. But I think people are taking a little bit of a step back now and saying, okay, I prefer to wait and see, or maybe I'll stick with Linux.
And which operating systems are you using?
Sorry?
Which operating systems are you using?
At the moment, we're focusing on Linux, but we do also have an Android TV solution as well. So we're sort of adopting the approach of, we're still focusing on Linux, but Android is sort of there. Yeah. And if someone really wants to progress with an Android TV solution, we can actually do it. But it's trying to sort of look at the bigger picture. Yeah,
well, you have to look at what your consumers want and then what that actually means in reality, not just looking at a hype, but actually how it actually delivers. Yeah. So where are you in the world? Where are you located? Where do you distribute to?
I mean, our core business currently is in Europe, because we're a sort of German company, so we've built the base of the business there. But now we're expanding out, so we have business in the US, in Canada, in Eastern Europe. We've recently obtained business in Africa. We have some business in Asia.
It's a different market,
so we're truly becoming a sort of global company, and that's part of what I'm doing and bringing to the to ABOX 42 is reaching out into all these different areas, because a lot of these areas I've covered and worked in for the last 20 years.
Yeah, and they're all very different. They have all very different needs as well. They
do. Yeah. And the US market is probably very different to other markets.
Yeah, like South Africa.
I mean, you have issues with the local channels, you have retransmission costs as well, and it's trying to find ways, again, to make the overall solution profitable. One of the areas we're looking at the moment is an ATSC tuner. Okay. So the local channels can be taken off air, so free off of air, if there's line of sight to a transmitter, and that basically means that the retransmission fees, which are quite high depending how many local channels there are, can be reduced. So it's part of trying to operate within the local market of what's right and what works for that local market.
Absolutely. So you've done ATSC, you've come out with 4K and UHD recently.
Yeah.
What is next on your roadmap?
Well, it's really progressing on those. ATSC is new for us, because we first started looking at that a year ago, so we're really still at the phase when that's only just about coming to market going forward. And with 4K, everyone's been talking about 4K, it's coming, but how many linear or broadcast channels are actually in 4K at the moment? A lot of the content on Netflix and Prime and the OTT players are already in 4K, but broadcast, it's limited. And I think some of that transition will happen the same way as the transition from SD to HD, in that took a while to come, but there was a tipping point when 4K becomes accepted by the consumer and needed by the consumer. I think that tipping point will come during 2018. So it's really developing the set-top box range that we actually have to make sure it's fully compliant, works with all the 4K content, and then beyond that, it's looking as to how we can help to minimise the costs on the set-top box size to make sure they're right for the market.
That's all really exciting. Thank you so much for taking the time to share what's happening with the set-top box industry, and you're part of it.
No, you're welcome. It's very good to do so. Thank you, Maria.
We hope to see you next year.
Yeah, hope so too.
Okay.